Hello, Math 6. Today we are beginning with our last chapter. These are notes that were previously written, so they're not in my handwriting, so that's just the way it's going to be. Our lesson today, lesson 155, is on integers. Integers, you might, we actually know exactly what these are. We might just not be calling them integers. Integers are whole numbers and their opposites. So think numbers we count with. Let's see, we do have a color. So counting numbers and their negatives. So think, this is dark, Mr. Bulger. Well, this is the negative numbers, not necessarily just the evil ones. So here's a few examples. These are all integers. So 0 is right there at the middle. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like all of them. And then their opposites. So the opposite of 1 is -1. The opposite of 2, -2. So it's the whole numbers and their opposites, or the numbers we count with and their negatives. Basically, this just means we're not going to see any numbers like 2.5. That's not an integer. That's something else. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw a number line, or I'm going to show you a number line, and it's marked integer. Okay. So here we have a number line. And I've got 0 in the middle, 1, 2, 3, 4, -1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. And what we see is, for example, point C is at 0. A is at 2. B is at -3. If I were to put D right there, well, D is at -1. So A 2, B -3, C 0, D is at -1. Okay. Now, this note, the increase and decrease, is not for this information. It's for this information coming below. When we're at 0, it increases to the right. So as we move right on the number line, I'm going to write that up here. As we move on number line, values increase. That should be a comma, values increase. Right on the number line, values increase, or left, values decrease. The phrase that you can use to remember when talking about number lines is left is less. So I'll put a little asterisk here. Left is less. Values decrease as you move towards the left. Or if you find a number on here. So if we were talking about points B, D, C, D is less than C, and B is also less than D. B is less than C, but D is greater than B, right? Because it's to the right of it. I would rather have -$1 than -$3, right? This would be I owe somebody $1, or this is I owe somebody $3, and I just don't want to owe somebody $3. Okay, moving right along. So in similar things, what we're going to find a lot is comparing using greater or less than. Remember, this is the alligator wants something that way or something that way. Okay. So if we had -1 and +1, the alligator would rather have 1 than -1. Okay, let's see if I can do it like this while pulling the piece of paper down. -3 or -4. We typically know 4 is the larger number, but I would rather owe somebody only $3, not $4. So -3 is greater than -4. And if that's confusing, go back to a number line. Draw yourself a number line. Right? -4 is going to be here. And we know that left is less. So -4 has a lower value than -3. I would rather owe somebody only $3 instead of $4. Okay. Moving right along. Oh, come on, this is way difficult. Hey. 6 or 0? Well, I'd rather have $0 than $. Booyah. 7 or -7? Well, I'd rather 7 is greater than -7. 0 or 5? Well, I'd rather have $5. 2 or 1? And so on and so forth. Okay. Now, you will be asked at different times to write integers from least to greatest. So this is reordering. So these are two different sets. So this is number 1, this is set number 2. So first off, we're going to order set number 1 from least to greatest. So we're going to start with the smallest numbers. Now again, you might think, well, 1 is smaller than 2 and 4. Again, think of a number line. -4 is furthest to the left than -2 or -1. So it's actually going to start -4, -2, -1, and then 7. Okay. Looking at this next set, again, watch your negatives. -5 is a greater amount of debt than -3. So if it, usually I'd talk about money because people tend to understand money. So if you have $5 in debt, well, that's a greater negative than $3 in debt. So since we're setting up from least to greatest, -5 is my lowest value. And then it's -3. And then 2 and 5. Okay. Moving on to our second page. I have a couple definitions here. So opposites are the same distance from 0 from each other. And I'll show you what I mean. So 5 and -5. Our other example is 3 and -3. Again, if I were to draw these on a number line, so I'm just going to draw one number line. I'm going to have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, I am cheating by just using the line. -1, -2, -3, -4, and -5. And we'll say it goes out that way and then out that way. Okay, so here's what we mean. Let's look at this first set. when I start from 0, and let's say I'm going to go to positive 5 first, I'm going to take how many steps to get there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I take 5 steps to reach to 5. Well, how many steps am I taking towards negative 5? Well, I'm still taking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps away. Right? Imagine you're in the Wild West and you're cowboys and you're in a duel. You guys both start at the 0, and the amount of steps that you take has to be the same amount of steps from your opposite number. Okay, same with 3 and negative 3. So if I'm moving towards 3 first, all right, partner, this is a draw. 1, 2, 3 steps, and then 1, 2, 3 steps. I'm going in the negative direction. I'm going in the opposite direction than positive, but I'm taking 2, 3 steps. Okay, hope this is making sense. Now, this is what I'm talking about. When we talk about steps, we're talking about absolute value. So the absolute value of the number 1 is always positive, and it is the distance away from 0. So we'll see it with these 2 bars around a number. So if I were talking about the absolute value of negative 1, well, how many steps away from 0 is negative 1? Negative 1 is 1 step away from 0. So the absolute value, usually I try to cross the lines just to make it really clear and obvious. So the absolute value, how many steps am I taking? 1 step. So the absolute value of negative 1 is positive 1. Okay? Just like the absolute value of negative 7. Again, how many steps away from 0 are we taking here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We are taking 7 steps. Think of it like this. 7 steps away from 0. Seven steps away from 0. Okay. All right, I've got some practice for you guys. And again, I'm just going to show this one little bit at a time. So go ahead and you're welcome to pause the video along the way. What is the opposite of negative 12? It's 12. What's the opposite of 43? Negative 43. Okay. Now, what is the absolute value of the absolute value of 17? And again, I know it might look like 1171, but notice how it goes beyond the line. So that's the absolute value of 17. Well, we're taking 17 steps. The absolute value is not the opposite. The absolute value is always positive. Okay. All right, what's the absolute value of negative 51? Well, it happens to be the opposite, but that's because the positive steps that I'm taking away from 0 to get to negative 51 is 51 steps. Okay. Now, write the integer that is 1 greater than. So if I had $1 more than these guys, if I had $1 more than 6, I would have $7. If I had $1 more than negative 14, I would have negative $13. I am 1 step closer to positive, or 1 step in the positive direction. I'll write that up here. 1 step in positive direction. Okay. Now this is going to be one. We're writing the integer that is 1 less than. So this is one step in the negative direction. One step less than, or one integer less than -2 is -3. Less than 0 is -1. Oh, this is a tricky one. The opposite of the absolute value of -8. So first, absolute value of -8 is +8. Second, opposite of 8 is -8. Okay, so that's a two-step process. What's the opposite of -8? Or the absolute value of -8? First you need to figure out the absolute value of -8, then you need to figure out its opposite, one step, two step. Hope this helps. This is going to be a doozy of a chapter, but we can do it. All right, love you guys. Bye.